Hello, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen. I began collecting stuff on Rising Tide after I learnt their target audience for protesters to paddle out in front of tankers was high school kids through the schools program. So, because boys would rather get in trouble for other things, it was mostly high school girls going out there, risking their lives and getting a criminal record, paddling out in plastic canoes and inflatable unicorns and other things that can blow off into the wind. And I thought, I think there's something to see here. Starting with a bit of this from 3 weeks ago.
Their promise is it'll be bigger and even more disruptive than the last one. Protesters are planning to shut down a major port, angering local businesses. 2 big cruise ships are due in that weekend, but they've been scared off, cancelling their planned stopovers.
There was no consideration given to the dates. To have 2 cruises cancelled is quite significantly damaging for our businesses.
We have a right to be on those waters.
It's the great ship fight.
This is all just terribly performative. This is not about climate action, this is about stunts for Rising Tide.
For its 3rd year, the People's Blockade is full steam ahead, but this time it's taking the heat out of local businesses.
We lose 1 or 2 cruise ships and that trade doesn't come back. It's not like it's coming the week after or the week after that. It's gone.
The Newcastle port is the busiest coal port in the world. It exports more than $15 billion of coal every year. But that's what's made it the target of climate crusaders who are calling for those profits to be taxed at 78% to help pay for climate damage.
Rising Tide's method is to disrupt in a war on coal.
Well, if the port wants to attack Rising Tide, they should come at us directly.
Last year, Newcastle Mayor Ross Kerridge made a captain's call to approve the Rising Tide protest on land, believing the group would keep to its word and stay out of the water.
Their credibility is on the line.
So you're not worried about having maybe egg on your face if this goes poorly?
I've had lots of egg on my face in the past and I'm sure I'll have lots of egg on my face in the future.
Rising Tide protesters didn't stay out of the water, despite an unprecedented exclusion zone around the port, leading to more than 170 arrests.
How does your face look today?
Oh, it looks pretty good, I think. I think I'm even more handsome than usual.
Now it seems like deja vu, councillors voting 6-5 in favour of the protest going ahead at the end of the month. Callum Poole and Jenny Barry voted against it. The council approval relates to a festival at Foreshore Park, but Rising Tide organiser Zach Schofield says it's not called the People's Blockade for nothing.
So at the moment, we're planning on scheduling a symbolic blockade of Newcastle Harbour. It's the world's largest coal port.
Last month, protesters had a practice paddle from Sydney's Kirribilli to Circular Quay.
Join us in Newcastle.
We pulled it off without a hitch, so I'm very excited to see what that holds for us in Newcastle.
Now it's expecting more than 7,000 people to turn out for a flotilla to halt ships for 48 hours.
So the reason why we've called for the Port of Newcastle to reschedule those coal shipments is because if there are no coal ships to block, there are simply no laws to break.
Police have warned unlawful activity could result in fines or imprisonment, but that's a risk protesters are willing to take.
Oh, I wish I didn't have to be arrested at all. And I think it's a shame that the state has decided to try and criminalise protest to paper over the fact that it has failed on policy to actually take care of the people of the Hunter.
And this is from 3 days ago.
So we've got a special guest on this podcast. His name's Zach Schofield, and he is an organiser for Rising Tide, which is an event that I went to on the weekend. But I'd like Zach to tell me about this event that I went to. So yeah, Zach, what's that?
Hey, Geordie. Now, I'm going to correct you immediately out of the gate because
Awesome. Good start.
you went to the People's Blockade, the world's largest coal port. Every
do
single
that.
motherfucker says it's Rising Tide. Rising Tide is the community movement that organises the People's Blockade, right?
Nice.
A subtle point.
Good clarification.
A good clarification. And it's important because, the People's Blockade, thousands of people going to my hometown, Newcastle, it's the world's largest coal port, to disruptively protest that industry. I'll tell you about what we're actually asking for in a minute. But that's a tactic, right? It's not the whole campaign. It's not the whole strategy. And it's a really good tactic because, what it looks like is thousands of people out in kayaks, in small yachts, in tinnies, swimming even in the waters of Newcastle Port. And this year, turning around 3 coal ships that were inbound. And it gives us an amazing platform to, campaign off of. It's also happened in Newcastle to varying sort of levels of disruption quite a number of times. From 2005, I think it's happened 14 times, this year being the 14th. But not all of them have been organised by, our version of Rising Tide, right? So the People's Blockade, this is the 3rd year that we've run it as Rising Tide. It's the biggest yet, and definitely the most disruptive.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's got a lot of attention. I feel like it's become a real focal point for a lot of the left around the country, not just in New South Wales, which is really exciting. And as you say, it's good to bring attention to the climate at this moment where the government's really trying to neutralise the issue and just pretend like job's done, it's all over now.
Yeah, totally. And I think, since the height of school strike, I suppose, there was a moment where climate really splashed onto the scene around, the Morrison government, and then, Labor gets in, and all of these institutions that were supporting the school strikers shut up and stay silent. The unions and the NGOs, they're entirely complicit in the Labor government's approval of 32 new coal and gas projects and more coming down the chain, right? So we've been really stoked, I guess, that we've been able to build some momentum in a coal community, which is what Newcastle and the Hunter is, across this period of relative quiet in the climate movement. And I think, we are bringing the left together in some way. Part of that is because, to be honest, our target is reasonably small. We've got a pretty good claim to own the campaign around Newcastle. And we do, have, our activists around the country, I'm based in Sydney these days, get involved in a whole lot of different things. And we do try and be, intersectional in our issues. And obviously, that's why we're here talking today. But, it's pretty easy to just come to Newcastle and get on board for a local campaign that, everyone across the country does align with without us, crossing over too much in ways that are, unhelpful. So come for the festival and then, we go out back into our own communities and help all the other campaigns around the country.
Yeah, I think the point about sort of after the height of the school strikes, I mean, we talked about, I think this on the podcast last week, but the sort of climate wars kind of debate that happened around the Bill Shorten election. And then after, Labor just wanting to not talk about this issue at all. And when they do, sort of prefacing everything about what's good for business and how we need to balance the addressing the issue of the climate crisis with big business. And I think we really need to see a revival of the climate movement. And I think the People's Blockade does help to sort of achieve that. Like Omar said, people going from all corners of the country to Newcastle to bring attention to this really big issue. Because, I mean, I was reading a report today that climate scientists are saying that we've reached a tipping point with the Amazon. And when that happens, what happens next with the climate crisis is anyone's guess. So drawing attention to that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, those of us who have been in the climate movement have been seeing these sort of reports coming out, progressively over the last couple of years. I mean, it was just last year that it was being reported that the net CO2 that was being absorbed by trees and plants in the ocean around the world, less than what those sources are emitting. because of forest fires and land clearing, and like we're actually so fucked, guys. You know, but nevertheless, the point is, you know, we still have a life to live, right? And while the world may be getting, you know, more dangerous and more unjust, it's actually, you know, movements of everyday people coming together and getting shit done and breaking some rules, and then also, you know, feeding each other, sharing some joy, making sure that after the fact we're all, you know, looked after. That's the sort of world that I want to live in. Those are the sort of people that I want to go into the bowels of hell with if we're going there. And if we're not going there, then those are the sort of people that are going to build a better world. So I one of the things I love about the People's Blockade is that it feels like practice, you know? It feels like practice of fighting for something. And people build skills there that they don't build in other sections of the movement, because we're doing mobilisation, breaking laws, and we set up, you know, a village for a week out of the year, which, by the way, we've had to win with an immense amount of political campaigning and the fact that we got council permission to go, you know, spend 5 days by the foreshore when they knew we were going to go disrupt coal ships next door was, you know, remarkable.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, that would have been, quite a fight. You kind of touched on something that I've heard you speak about before, so I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it again. But from a lot of the like very online left, there's been a lot of criticism about the festival aspect of the protest. Instead of, I don't know, like blowing up the ships or whatever. Do you want to talk to why you think that particular aspect of this is important?
Sure. Well, look, there's lots of reasons why it's important. One of them is that we actually live in a community of real people, and Newcastle is my hometown. Like, to be honest, don't want to start going and blowing up ships in Newcastle and getting everyone fucking raided and, you know, destroying all social license and social capital that we have in our hometown, because Newcastle's, you know, it's the source of about 1% of total global carbon emissions. It also has a really powerful role to play globally. Like, if we can transition very, very ambitiously away from this industry, you know, through concerted and escalatory community campaigning, direct action. Like, that's phenomenal. You know, and Newcastle is also primed for that transition. Like, there are other industries, there's funding, there's skilled workers who are desperate to like move into an industry that doesn't destroy the planet and also has a shelf life of longer than 10 years. So we, you know, to go and destroy that, you know, those relationships and that good work that we've been doing. I mean, that's not really talking about the festival. That's why we shouldn't go blow up coal ships, right? but you know, the festival provides a base for us to then go and do actual protest that is actually disruptive. And, you know, to say that the festival is somehow undermines the fact that we turned around 3 coal ships, you know, somehow undermines the fact that we've got national media attention on worker power and, to be honest, like a demand that centres taking money back from these corporations to fund communities and workers throughout the Hunter, Singleton and Muswellbrook, you know, major coal mining communities. It's really disingenuous, and I just don't think, you know, those people have been there, to be honest, because it's also quite a good time. And you know, to suggest that people, you know, on the so-called left have to be miserable all the time when they go about their work is very bad. You know,
I agree with that.
We
I agree with
social
that.
creatures.
Yeah, that's right. And personally, I hate being sad. The other aspect of the festival that is important and is that it's filled with political discussions, right? There's all different groups hosting workshops and forums and chats about various issues, bringing their own perspective. Like, I know Geordie did a forum with some people that had like 350 people attending.
It was massive,
which is amazing. You know, like, there's actually a discussion to be had about what strategies and tactics can work, and spaces like that can be useful for doing that as well as just like eating and so on, which is all important and fine. But, you know, these are meeting spaces for the left to talk about what kind of movement we need and what kind of demands we need and stuff like that.
Okay. So when I was a bit older than that, I did year 12 in the 90s when environmental studies was a brand new subject. Luckily for me, my teacher was a physics teacher. So instead of worrying about the burning planet, I'm more freaked out about the lithium between the glass that's between me and the constellations now that I only got put on a few weeks ago because of the price of power. I have been fighting them for so long, and I see them spread out all across the countryside. And I've got that sort of anxiety instead. Here's to the three-eyed platypus. Anyway, see you later. Bye.